A conversation beyond the ordinary. It was late in the evening when Sherlock Holmes finally returned to 221B Baker Street, his coat damp from the persistent London drizzle. I had waited patiently, the weight of my encounter with Weena and Wells pressing heavily upon me. Holmes had been engrossed in an investigation, a case of forgery, he later explained, involving a prominent family, and their feuding heirs. But his work was now concluded, and I seized the opportunity to speak. "You look troubled, Watson," he said as he seated himself by the fire, clasping his hands together with his customary air of focus. "Though I have yet to hear your words, your demeanor tells me the matter is unusual. I suspect it has nothing to do with any earthly crimes." A faint smile tugged at my lips. Holmes's ability to read my thoughts, or at least their contours, never ceased to amaze me. But this time the story I carried was beyond deduction. It was something that would challenge even his formidable intellect. "Holmes," I began, leaning forward in my chair, "while you were away, I encountered visitors. Guests of a nature unlike any I've ever encountered before. They came to me seeking assistance, and though their needs were simple, their origins and their tale have left me grappling with questions far greater than I ever imagined." Holmes raised an eyebrow, but he remained silent, allowing me to continue uninterrupted. I told him everything, from the moment Weena appeared at my door, her delicate frame cloaked in quiet despair, to the arrival of her enigmatic companion, Wells. I recounted Wells's startling revelation about the time machine, a contraption capable of piercing the barriers of time itself. I spoke of the Eloi and the Morlocks, of Weena's harrowing journey and her bravery in the face of unfathomable odds. Holmes listened intently, his sharp eyes never leaving mine. He asked no questions until I was finished, and when I finally paused to catch my breath, his expression was one of contemplative intrigue. "You believe this man's claims?" he asked at last. "This time traveler?" I hesitated. "I do, Holmes. There was no deceit in his manner, no artifice in his explanations, and Weena herself, her very presence, spoke to a truth that could not be fabricated." Holmes leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers as he often did when pondering a matter of great complexity. "If what you say is true," he mused, "then this discovery heralds a paradigm shift in our understanding of the universe. The implications for science, for history, for humanity itself, are staggering." His gaze sharpened. "And yet, Watson, I must confess a certain skepticism. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and while your sincerity is beyond doubt, I would reserve judgment until I had the opportunity to examine this time machine myself." "I thought you might say that," I replied with a faint smile. "But tell me, Holmes, what do you make of Weena? What does her story suggest to you?" Holmes considered this for a moment, his keen mind parsing the details I had shared. "Her story, if we accept it as truth, is a cautionary tale," he said. "It reflects the duality of progress, the brilliance of human innovation shadowed by the darker consequences of its misuse. The Morlocks and the Eloi are, perhaps, a mirror held up to our own society, a glimpse of what may come if we allow our divisions to deepen and our compassion to wane." I nodded, struck by the clarity of his observation. "Indeed," I said. "And yet, despite the tragedy of her world, Weena herself embodies hope. A reminder that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit endures." Holmes's expression softened, and for a brief moment, I saw a flicker of something rare, a glimpse of the man behind the detective, touched by the depth of the story I had shared. As the fire crackled softly between us, I felt a sense of relief. I had entrusted Holmes with a story that defied reason, and while his analytical mind sought evidence, his heart had understood its essence. In that moment, I knew that our bond, forged in the pursuit of truth, was unshakable. The emergence of Hermes Watson's journal lay open on the desk before him, its pages illuminated by the flickering light of the fire. His pen hovered above the parchment, yet he hesitated, the weight of what he had seen pressing against his thoughts. The portal, the flower, the visitors, it all defied the boundaries of reason, yet there it was, tangible and undeniable. Holmes, seated in his usual spot by the hearth, studied the ornate device that Watson had placed between them. The object was simple in appearance, yet intricate in its construction. A circular frame of gleaming metal, its surface etched with symbols that seemed to shimmer as though alive. Wells had called it Hermes, a conduit for time itself, a portal crafted to allow safe passage between epochs. So this is the link, Holmes mused, his voice sharp and analytical. He leaned forward, his penetrating gaze fixed upon the artifact. A gateway between worlds, yet its function remains unclear. Watson nodded. Wells spoke of its use, how it opens when activated with the correct sequence. He left it in my care, trusting me to keep it safe. And now, Holmes, I must confess. I do not know whether to marvel at its potential or fear the power it represents. Holmes reached for the device, his fingers tracing the delicate engravings along its edge. If this object is what Wells claims, then it is both, a marvel and a danger. The implications of its existence are staggering. But tell me, Watson, what of the flower? Watson glanced at the desk, where the flower Weena had given him rested in a small glass vial. Its petals were unlike any he had seen before, a vibrant hue that seemed to change under the light, as if imbued with the very essence of her world. He had preserved it carefully, knowing it was more than just a gift. It was a fragment of Weena's story, a symbol of her hope and resilience. The flower, Watson began, his voice steady, is unlike any specimen native to our time. I believe it originates from Weena's world, a place where beauty and fragility coexist in precarious balance. She gave it to me as a gesture of trust, a reminder that kindness transcends the limits of time. Holmes considered this, his keen mind already at work. A flower, a portal, a tale of distant futures. Watson, these are pieces of a puzzle that demand scrutiny. We must understand the mechanics of this portal, and if it is safe, perhaps even step through it ourselves. The suggestion sent a shiver down Watson's spine. You mean to travel through time? He asked, his voice tinged with both awe and apprehension. Holmes met his gaze, a spark of determination in his eyes. To uncover the truth, we must. But only once we are certain of the portal's reliability. For now, let us experiment. Analyze the artifact and the flower. Gather all possible knowledge before venturing into the unknown. As the evening wore on, the two men worked tirelessly, Holmes employing his deductive prowess to unlock the mysteries of Hermes, while Watson documented every discovery with meticulous care. The room was filled with the hum of their thoughts, the air charged with anticipation. And when the portal finally began to stir, its edges glowing softly, its surface shimmering like the waters of an ethereal pool, they knew their journey was about to begin. Watson swallowed his trepidation, gripping the flower tightly in his hand as a token of reassurance. Holmes, ever steadfast, stepped forward, his eyes reflecting the unquenchable curiosity that had always driven him. Together, they prepared to cross the threshold, knowing full well that what awaited them was beyond imagination.